Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is yet another vlog. You know the drill, let's go. So I'm going to start with some items that were sent to me by my good friend Jonathan. Once again, a huge thanks and shout out goes to him for sending me these gifts. There is a 4K, but I'm going to get to that when I show the other 4Ks from the particular series that the film is a part of momentarily. But let's start out with the other Blu-rays that he decided to send me. So we have Pinocchio, the Disney animated film. I haven't seen this in decades. I remember watching it as a kid and not minding it, so it's a fun addition to the Disney animated collection. Speaking of animation, got a couple more animated films. We've got Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1 and Part 2, just in time for the Halloween season. So, Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1 and 2. Here we have the original The Thing from Another World from Warner Archive. And next up is The Island of Dr. Moreau, the infamously terrible remake from the 90s, which had a ton of production issues. The next two Blu-rays here are titles that I picked up recently myself, and I know this one's going to surprise some people. They're going to be like, you paid money for Fan 4 Stick? Yeah, I did, because I actually don't think Fantastic Four is really that bad. I've always thought that this film was interesting. Yes, it's flawed. It's a tale of two different movies because the film was taken away from Josh Trank at some point in the film, and you can tell that there was a lot of studio interference. But what he was doing before that, I actually thought was interesting. I like the body horror elements that are brought into the fold. I also really appreciated the more serious, grounded take on things compared to the silly goofball uh, attitude and approach that was in the other Fantastic Four films. If it's not an issue for Nolan to take a lot of creative liberties with Batman, why is it such a problem that Josh Trank does a similar thing here? This is considered to be unacceptable and one of the worst comic book films because of the fact that it's not 100% true to the spirit of the comics all the time. But Nolan does the same thing, and it's brilliant and it's great, and it's something that is just admirable. And I just don't understand the double standard. Also, this is the worst comic book film that you've seen. This isn't even the worst Marvel movie. It's not even close. I mean, that movie wipes the fucking floor with Captain Marvel. And then I got Robin Hood, Men in Tights, because I'm a big fan of Mel Brooks, and that's a fun comedy. Next up are two 4Ks. So we have Halloween, the original Immortal classic, just in time for the holiday season as well. And then we also have the sequel, Halloween 2. Now, I know some people might be a little leery about getting these, but if you're a fan of either of these films, I do recommend picking these up. Because these do have some really good looking transfers, especially if you have a 4K setup. And speaking of Halloween, here we have Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is arguably probably one of my favorite Halloween films, period, not just in this franchise. And this was a gift from Jonathan as well. Really happy to have this in my collection because I'm a big fan of this film. And I will be doing another review of this very soon. So, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch 4K. Then we have Carlito's Way, the Steelbook. Um, this is from Best Buy. This is another good film. the lighting isn't really the best. The steelbook looks better in person. And got one more 4K here. Got Stranger Things season 1. Season 2 was never released in 4K. So the only season that was released in 4K is the first season, which honestly I'm okay with because I really love the first season. That's my first introduction to Stranger Things, like most people. And it's my favorite episode, I mean, season of the series, which probably features my favorite episodes of the series. And then we have Universal Monsters, the classic complete 30 film collection. So we have all of the classic Universal Monsters films in HD. And then next up, we have some DVDs. So we have Automan, the complete series. It's a fun little show from the 80s. Good companion piece to that. It's another cult 80s TV show, Manimal. And also got Fire on the Amazon with Sandra Bullock and Craig Sheffer. We've got John Wayne in McQ, which is in a lot of ways John Wayne's take on Dirty Harry. We've got the classic 70s drama Network have a Abel Ferrara film, Bad Lieutenant with Harvey Keitel. They rated NC-17 version. We've got a classic horror film, I think from the 50s. Yeah, 50s horror movie, The Alligator People. And then, last but not least, we have Race Against Time with Eric Roberts and Cary Elwes. It's a TNT original movie. And then we have the letter that Jonathan sent me, and I'm going to answer some questions for him. He mentions that he's talking about Busted and Lucky Fritz. He's wondering if they're on par with other shitty movies like August Underground 1 and 2, Ballbusters, Creepshow 3, so on. Yeah, they're in the same vein as those, but I would probably say that some of them are definitely better because at least the production values are a little higher. Um, Yes, question. Since you're a Crypt fan and Creepshow fan, do you think the Creep and the Crypt Keeper look alike? A little bit. There's some different. There's enough differences. The Crypt Keeper has definitely more personality. Um, and it also seems like the Crypt Keeper is still a little bit more flesh and blood. Like he's a lot of bone too, but he's not as bony as the Creep. It mentions fitting punishment, the episode of Tales from the Crypt. Yeah, I mean, it's a fine episode. I mean, I am glad that Ezra got what he deserved. I think I reviewed that episode already. Um, I wouldn't say What's Cooking is my favorite episode of the entire series, but it's still a really good episode. Yeah, Christopher Reeve and Judd Nelson were great. Um, Mentions about the other Blu-rays and stuff like that that I picked up myself. Um, Talking about Del Toro and his upcoming films. Uh, Talking about Dead and Buried, Roger Rabbit, Fritz the Cat, and other stuff for Christmas, which is really generous and kind. Um, and talks about some things that he thinks I should review in the future, or I've already mentioned that I will. Um, and I'll definitely get around to a good chunk of these in the near future. Mentions Malignant. I did see that recently and I enjoyed it. I'll review that sometime in the near future as well. James Wan is absolutely 100% a very talented director. Talks about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and how it's a franchise that should just die. Yes. Yes, I am 100%. I'm 100%. I definitely am in favor of that. We don't need any more Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Just like we don't need any more Scream films. Um, yeah, I'm glad Quiet Place 2 was a hit. That's good to hear. Although I'm still kind of leery about Quiet Place 2 because as much as I like the first film, I don't really know why they made a sequel. It doesn't really seem like something that's needed, but I'll give it a shot someday and I will see for myself soon enough. Talks about some other films from this year that he liked and thought were some of the better films that came out in theaters. Mentions Antlers and Dune, Nightmare Alley, Ghostbusters Afterlife. Those are three films that I definitely am curious about. Um, Talks about the commentary that Matt and I did on the 2016 Ghostbusters a long time ago. Yeah, that was fun. Then he mentions the one we did on the RoboCop remake. Um, how many stars do I give the 2016 film after revisiting it? I didn't revisit that film recently, as far as I know. I don't think I've seen that film again, and so I don't know what my rating would be for the 2016 Ghostbusters. I mean, it's really terrible. I know that for a fact. Um, it would be around the same rating that I gave it initially. As for RoboCop, it's just as bad as it was the first time around. My rating hasn't changed. I don't even know if I gave it a star rating. Um, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not even gonna justify either of those films and give them ratings because they suck that much. No offense. How many stars do I give Friday the 13th Part 6, 7, and 8? This is a lot of stuff to give stars to. Um, I'll tell you what. I'll take a look at this and I'll think about it some more and I'll get back to it in another vlog or in a personal message or something like that because I have a little limited amount of time when it comes to my work schedule as of late. So that would take me quite a bit just to think about which film has what rating and why and so on. Yeah, Sarah Douglas is definitely quite a babe as Ursa. I would say Sucker Punch is in a lot of ways a poor man's version of those films: Heavy Metal, Labyrinth, Return to Oz, and Brazil. Yeah, I did see Watchmen in theaters with the church group. Yeah, that was very awkward, for sure. Um, and yeah, I'm pretty sure their reaction to things like Fritz the Cat and Heavy Metal and Watership Down would have been pretty intense as well. He talks about Matrix Resurrections. Talks about how he has a bad feeling about it. Talks about the Die Hard reviews that I did. Talks about Heavy Metal in 4K, which I'm looking forward to. Toolbox Murders as well. Um, Script leak on Indiana Jones 5, which is stupid. I don't know. We don't need another Indiana Jones anyway. And I know we defended it initially, but everything I'm just hearing about it just sounds like a bad idea. And mentions the Cowboy Bebop movie, which I'll try to check out sometime. Talks about Rocky 4. Um, Talks about some other 4K releases coming up, which I am also looking forward to, like Hard Target and then Ticks and so on. So thank you, Jonathan, for the letter and for all the gifts, and thank you all for your support. Whether it's just a kind word here and there, or just pressing like on the video, or just watching my content, it all means a lot to me. Now I'm going to talk about a few things real quick. For one, I'm going to address the recent tragedy on the set of, I think, a film called Rust. I could be wrong about the name, but it's a movie featuring Alec Baldwin, and it's all over the news because there were some people who were shot on the set of the film, and one of them actually died. This woman actually died on the set of the film due to gunshot wounds, and Alec Baldwin was holding the gun that ultimately killed that woman when he pulled the trigger. So it's a very similar situation to Michael Massey in the Crow, where Michael Massey, who played Fun Boy in that film, is the actor who was sadly at the wrong place at the wrong time when he fired the trigger and wound up killing Brandon Lee. And I said I've talked about Michael Massey and The Crow in the past, and Michael Massey does not deserve any of the blame for the death of Brandon Lee, and I feel the same way about Alec Baldwin because it's not his fault. There are mistakes that happen on the set of a film. And this seems like one of those mistakes. Something went wrong with the prop gun, and lives were lost. And I really do not agree with the claims that it was his fault, or just because of some things that he said on Twitter, he deserves the backlash, or he deserves the blame. Like, I've heard shit like that, and I'm like, come on now, let's not turn this into a political thing. This is a tragedy, and it's a really sad day for everyone involved, and let's not pile on. There's really no reason for that. Regardless of what you think about Alec Baldwin's politics, it's not like he shot the people on purpose. He didn't do that out of rage or whatever, and there was no political leanings or involvement when it comes to him pulling the trigger. So at this point, I think people should handle things with more grace, with more respect, and just be there for Alec Baldwin, as well as the entire cast and crew, and the families and the friends of those who have died on the set as a result of these tragic events, or the ones that are still recuperating from the uh, events that occurred. I just do not agree with this recent thing that a lot of people are talking about, like, oh, he deserves it, or this is karma, just because he said some things on Twitter that you don't agree with. Like, I don't really feel that that's something that applies. But that's just me personally. If you agree to disagree, that's fine, as long as it's done respectfully, no issue with it. But for me, it's just a sad state of affairs all the way around. And I don't know the full details of everything, but if it is one of those things where they were cutting corners, like in The Crow, then I'm going to be a little bit more upset, because you would think after everything that happened on the set of that film, after all these years, they would not cut corners again and they wouldn't be doing that shit anymore. But it seemed like it might be a relatively low budget film, so who knows? I don't know the full details of everything yet. I don't think it's been fully disclosed yet. But at this moment in time, my heart just goes out to Alec, the director, the cast, the crew, everyone who was on the set that day, the friends and the family of the woman who was killed, as well as the loved ones of the other person who was shot on the set of the film. Now, in much more lighter uh, news, I'm just gonna give some brief thoughts on a couple movie trailers. I know some people have asked me about my thoughts on the Batman. This is a trailer that's really growing on me. The first time I saw it, I was not a fan of the approach because it seemed like it was just Christopher Nolan Batman 2.0 with maybe a few little tweaks here and there, but visually it was very similar to it, and it was also trying to be a more gritty, realistic noir Batman, and I was just not really on board with that because I was really done with that after The Dark Knight Rises. I was like, I don't want to see this approach ever again. And so that had my guard up. There was also a scene with Batman in the prison where I felt that Pattinson tried a little too hard to be intimidating and reminded me of Bale's Batman, complete with the throat cancer voice, which was not a good sign. And I'm not really on board with Catwoman. I don't know why she's in this film. We don't need her to be in this movie. I'm also a little leery of the fact that there's too many characters. You have Penguin, you have Riddler, and you have Catwoman. You have three villains in one movie. I know they're saying they're trying to set it up so they can do sequels and so on. What's wrong with just having one villain? Why do you have to set everything up? Why do you have to try to do the MCU approach, but with like a couple Batman storylines, like the Long Halloween? We don't need to do that. Just hold off. Wait. Let your characters breathe. Let your villains breathe. Don't have them all in one movie. Uh, I know the Riddler is one that's been getting a lot of praise. I don't know what to say about the Riddler. He seems to be a pretty bland, boring villain so far because you don't even see him say a single line of dialogue. And I know I've heard people say, oh, that's a good thing. Is it? Maybe they don't show a lot of scenes of the Riddler because maybe they're not really that confident in the scenes with the Riddler. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. And Paul Dano proves me dead wrong on the spot, but I just don't see what the big praise and hype is about the Riddler because there's nothing to this Riddler. He's a guy who speaks in riddles like the Riddler, but he's trying to be like the Zodiac killer and he wears duct tape. Like what is so amazing about this Riddler? There's nothing about this Riddler yet that I can really sink my teeth into. Penguin, I like Colin Farrell. He's almost unrecognizable in this trailer. But the Penguin seems like he's had all of his personality and quirks and charisma completely removed. He's just a generic mob boss. So I'm not really a fan of that either. And I'm worried that the Riddler is just going to be boring. Because they're just going to take him so seriously that they're not going to have him have an ounce of personality or a sense of humor because they don't want people to think that they're doing Jim Carrey again in Batman Forever. And as a result, they're going to take an extreme approach and just completely suck his soul out. And I really do not want to see that happening. And I don't want to see that happen, period. But that's just all based on trailers and what I've seen. All of that being said, I did like the trailer, and that's why I'm saying it's something that grew on me. Because the more I watched it, the more I started to see a lot of things that I really liked about it. The more I started to see a visual style that is trying a little bit harder to separate itself from Christopher Nolan. And Robert Pattinson was just fantastic, other than that one sequence where it was a little iffy. But other than that, he sold me. And I really like the approach of having Batman be a little bit more impulsive, a little bit more angry. And on top of that, more inexperienced, just trying to feel his way, trying to figure things out. And the action was really awesome. The action was really well choreographed and fun. And it actually looks like the director can shoot some fight scenes. And there were some real standout, big, grand moments in the trailer. And the score was fantastic. I love the score in this by Michael Giacchino. So yeah, it's something that definitely has me interested. I am definitely looking forward to it which is more than I could really say prior to seeing this trailer. But I'm still a little leery about some things. I just don't know about three villains, and I don't know about Catwoman. I don't know why we need this character in the film, and there's just a couple other things where I'm kind of a little worried when it comes to the movie. And another thing is I'm just worried about just being too tethered to Nolan and trying to do that again, but with only minor tweaks. But that being said, good trailer. And it was definitely a lot better than the trailer for Uncharted, which was a train wreck. What the fuck was that? Like, I was already super against the casting of Tom Holland as Nathan Drake, and this trailer just confirmed whatever problems I had with the casting. Miscast to all hell. Some of the worst miscasting I've seen in years. Tom Holland is a nice guy. He's a talented actor. Wrong guy for the role. It's like if Michael J. Fox played James Bond. You'd be like, what? It does not work. And I don't know what they were thinking. And then you have Marky Mark and his Funky Bunch too, which doesn't really do the film any favors, having his talentless hack ass in the movie just being Marky Mark and having really no instance where he's really trying to be anything else than that. And the action, for the most part, looked pretty generic. It reminded me in a lot of ways of the Tomb Raider reboot, and that's not a good sign. And it just looked pretty awful. It looked shitty. It looked like the curse of shitty video game movies is going to continue, which sucks. Because Uncharted is one that I think could have made a really good movie, really fun film in the vein of Raiders of the Lost Ark, but this looks more like Tomb Raider Cradle of Life or the Tomb Raider reboot. So anyway, I don't really have much else to say except a couple more quick thoughts about upcoming DVDs and Blu-rays. For instance, if you're a fan of horror, there is a upcoming release of the cult film Hell High. Arrow Video is going to be doing that maybe sometime within the next few months. Also, I am aware of the Kindred Blu-ray. I pre-ordered it already. Yes, I know it's expensive. Yes, I know it's kind of bullshit that Synapse is doing what they're doing, but it's unrated and it's got all these features, and I've been waiting for years for that. So I'm looking forward to it. It's coming out in December. And trying to think about if there's anything else that I really wanted to mention when it comes to upcoming DVD and Blu-rays. Not really. Really, I just wanted to mention the Kindred, and I wanted to mention the upcoming release of Hell High. But anyway, that's it. That's all I got for you. Stay tuned for more reviews. Next review coming up is of Halloween Kills, a film that, admittedly, after I thought about it some more, I didn't like as much after I initially saw it, but it's still a movie that's surprised me in a lot of different ways. So anyway, stay tuned for that, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.